Greetings everyone, warm welcome. It's an honour to have you here at the Saphira Centre of Shamanism, where we break down the ancient esoteric practices of shamanism and the occult, bringing them into balance with the deep psyche. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It is an honour to have you here. Thank you for joining me once again. Be sure to check out my membership programs within the first and second links in the description of this video. First link in the description for my premium membership service, the Saphira Shamanic School, if you are wanting access to powerful occult training and initiation webinars taking place multiple times each month, and if you're wanting to work more closely with me as a mentor. Or if you want access to my Patreon, which is much more passive and gives you access to lots of powerful exclusive content, then check out the second link within the description of this video, with new content uploaded multiple times each week. You will find workings with the Goetia, Daemon magic, angel magic, initiation via the Sephiroth, the Cliffoth, the Necronomicon Gnosis, the Primordial Dragons, as well as many other things, with new content uploaded multiple times each week. You can gain access to all of this at just £20 per month. Definitely check that out. I look forward to seeing you over there. Today we're going to be discussing the concept of summoning the Demiurge, which is a controversial alchemical act within occultism and Gnostic-based alchemy. Now, the Demiurge is the architect of falsehood, the personification of humanity's separation from divinity. He is also the personification of the tyrant that runs the material world. So why on earth would you want to invoke the very force of the tyrant and the oppression of humanity? Not to become more like this spirit, but to actually integrate this current within you. This is a current of energy that many alchemists have resistance to and try and do everything in their power to escape instead of integrate. And if you try and escape the Demiurge, then you are fueling greater separation within you. The key is to integrate the Demiurge, because this current of energy represents your inner tyrant, okay? The aspect of you which is stuck within illusionary power dynamics and illusions of control. So when you are summoning this energy in its true form, you are not summoning the false form of this energy, which is a very big difference. Let me give you an example. If I summoned the Demiurge in the form of Yahweh, or in the form of the Christian God, then that would not be beneficial to my initiatory process if I am wanting to integrate this energy, purely because I'm invoking the aspect of that energy which represents false light and falsehood. Whereas if I am using the core name of the Demiurge, which is Yaldabaoth, then I am tapping into the lion-headed serpent that is Yaldabaoth. So the intent, just like any workings with any deity, the intent matters more than the actual current of energy that is being tapped into. Okay, if you have the intent to tap into Yaldabaoth as Yaldabaoth and not as a false god, then you are going to tap into the raw, tyrannical aspect of this energy, which is not something which is for newer practitioners, may I add, unless you have a strong footing within your own sovereignty. Invoking this energy can very easily get you stuck within your illusionary power dynamics instead of actually integrating them and moving beyond them. So it's important that you have experience with other types of occult work and maybe even occult initiation before attempting to invoke Yaldabaoth. Because what happens when you pull this current of energy in is that you're literally having a conversation with your inner tyrant. You're literally having the conversation with your ego very directly, which has a very strong paradoxical effect. Okay, when you're communicating with Yaldabaoth as the false god, then it has a paradoxical effect because you are bringing the energy in to basically expose its true form, both outside of you and inside of you. So that triggers a significant dissolving process of the illusionary power dynamics that you have learnt to operate within. So What will start to happen when you tap into this energy is that you will feel an internal evocation of your illusions of control. It has a similar effect in ways, not exactly the same, but similar to that of Qliphothic initiation. In a way, what you're doing when you're going through Qliphothic initiation is that you are tapping into the shells that are cultivated by humanity's falsehood, cultivated by the Demiurge. So you receive tests that are there to make sure that you don't fall into greater separation and you don't basically fall a victim to your suppressed power and your suppressed desires. And it's exactly the same with the Demiurge. So you have to be prepared to face the most tyrannical aspects of yourself if you are tapping into this current of energy. Now, a lot of alchemists would be scared to do this, and this is completely understandable. But you have to understand that if there is fear towards something, then it means that there is opportunity for integration there. Okay, many people have fear of daemons, but daemons are the forces of liberation. So if you fear the Demiurge, then that may be an indication that you need to have a conversation with the Demiurge. Understand that this being, whether you like it or not, is a part of you. So when you're actually having a direct telepathic and energetic communication with this entity, then you are literally communicating with the very aspect of your falsehood with the intention to integrate it. And when you're integrating this energy, you are making sure that you are not falling a victim to it. Because the truth is that if we continue to operate how a lot of Gnostic-based alchemists and occultists who are focused on self-deification do, then it's trying to separate themselves from this energy and escape this energy. But it's literally like trying to run away from your own shadow. It's literally like trying to run away from your own reflection. And just the same, if you try and repress an emotion and you try and push an emotion to one side and not feel it, then you're going to fall a victim and a slave to that emotion. And it's exactly the same with Yaldabaoth. So we're going to be discussing the act of summoning Yaldabaoth in depth today, exploring its benefits and some different methods that you can use to do this in a way that is optimally safe and sustainable for you. So definitely stay tuned. So it's important to realise in the pursuit of tapping into the current of Yaldabaoth that this is not just one thing. The force of the tyrannical human nature and the force of oppression can be literally anything according to the individual. Anything can be used as a force of oppression, whether it's demonolatry work, angel work, religion, whatever that may be. Anything that is used to enforce a state of righteousness and enforce a state of illusionary power dynamics and control, then this falls under the current of Yaldabaoth anyway. The key is to get to a point in your evolutionary path and in your shadow integration journey where you can be in a space of oppression and not fall a victim to it. Okay, our whole world is operating from a space of oppression. And what are you going to do when you do this work? Are you just going to stay indoors all day? Are you just going to just do literally nothing and avoid everybody around you and avoid vulnerability? Because this is exactly the same thing happening in the opposite way. So you're facing this energy day to day anyway. It's important to realize it. Whether you like it or not, you are facing Yaldabaoth every single day when you go outside and communicate with the world around you. If you sit and have a Zoom with someone, particularly if you're working in like the corporate world and you're having like Zoom meetings or going into meetings or going to the shops or whatever that may be, you are interacting with forces of oppression, okay? And you are interacting with people around you who are not aware of the existence of this being. So it's important to understand here that you are interacting with Yaldabaoth constantly because you are Yaldabaoth. Okay, so it becomes a problem when you are using this energy in a way that is enforcing righteousness. Okay, so for example, many black magicians, shamans, and people who are in that sort of camp do use the energies that they work with to enforce a state of righteousness, and that's exactly the same as religion. How is that not the same as religion? If you are gatekeeping information and trying to keep people away from forbidden knowledge, how is that not the same as religion? How is that not the same as a priest standing on a podium in a church? It's very much the same. If you are gatekeeping information from people, and if you are basically trying to enforce a state of righteousness within yourself, then you are, in a sense, embodying an aspect of Yaldabaoth that you are basically painting out to be something which is completely different from what it actually is. So when you're tapping into the raw force of Yaldabaoth, you are interacting with a primordial entity. It's important to understand this. You're interacting with a primordial entity. Sophia went against, if we look at Gnosticism, Sophia went against the divine law and basically cultivated a being without the masculine counterpart, and basically cultivated this abomination of an entity. So she put him to sleep and cast him into the lower realms, into the void, and then he awoke and genuinely thought that he was God. Okay, so this is a lower being, a lower deity, but it also represents the lower aspects of yourself. Okay, a good way to describe this is if you look in the mirror. Okay, stand up and look in a mirror. You don't have to do it now, but if you do so, observe your reflection. Okay, you are looking at yourself in the reflection of this mirror. What happens if you identify with your reflection and not with you? You are then operating from the space of separation. A good way to describe this is in the Kabbalah. You've got the supernal triad, the upper triad, which is basically the true divine nature of humanity on the macrocosm and the microcosm. And then you've got the abyss, which is the mirror. So when the divine looks at itself in the mirror, the lower seven spheres, which are basically the personas and the different qualities of humanity and the different expressions of the divine, then that is basically what's looking back at you. Okay, so the same goes with Yaldabaoth. Okay, if you're tapping into a current like this and you are identifying with your reflection, then you are not identifying with the true aspect of yourself. Just the same as in the Kabbalah, the divine looks in the mirror and then identifies with itself as a predefined mask, layer, or persona. So it's important to realize that with the energy of Yaldabaoth, you are tapping into a primordial entity, which is literally like holding a mirror up to your inner tyrant. And it's up to you whether you identify with this inner tyrant or not. Trust me, if you continue to ignore this energy, then you will fall a victim to your inner tyrant. It will play out in ways that you are not going to be able to predict. Okay, maybe you'll become a teacher of this type of work, and maybe you'll unconsciously hold people back and try and keep them in a box and stop them from growing into their true autonomy. Maybe it will play out as subtly manipulative or controlling behaviors in relationship dynamics. All of this is the result of the power struggle that we have been taught to identify with, and that we have been taught is ultimately safer than embodying the aspect of ourselves which is actually looking into the mirror in the first place. So the whole reason why someone would go through something like the Kabbalah is to basically merge with their true divine nature, so that they can start to actually understand who is actually looking in the mirror instead of identifying and associating yourself with the very force that is looking back at you, which is not actually you. It's important to really understand this. So, tapping into Yaldabaoth is a very intense act because you are holding that mirror up to yourself. Okay, and when you are bringing this energy in willingly, it's just the same as invoking the deepest aspects of your unconscious mind willingly. Yaldabaoth is the one aspect of ourselves that nobody wants to embody. Everybody wants to convince themselves that they do not have this energy within them. Everybody wants to convince themselves that they do not have this falsehood within them, that what they are holding on to is the ultimate truth, and the belief system that they are operating from is the ultimate truth, despite the fact that in the majority of cases, that's not even a truth that you've come to terms with yourself anyway. So understand here that the force of oppression exists within everything. If, say, the left-hand path community says, don't ever invoke Yaldabaoth, don't ever do that, gain some bloody autonomy and do the complete opposite to what people are actually telling you to do. This is the thing, okay? If people are trying to move you away from something specific, then there is opportunity to grow within that particular area. The key here is to get to a point in your process whereby your ego is in an optimally fluid state. We would refer to this as a state of Da'ath, whereby your ego is not gone, but it's fluid, and you're understanding the fluidity of your identity structure without identifying with a set reflection that you are observing just by looking in the mirror, which is this abyssal realm. Okay, so as soon as we embody this fluid ego, we get to look at the different qualities that this ego represents in a way that is not going to attach ourselves to these specific qualities that we are observing, because this is an aspect of ourselves that wants things to be set in stone, but our soul does not want things to be set in stone. Our soul wants things to be optimally fluid and ultimately be able to embody true vulnerability instead of separation, whereas the ego is constantly there trying to comprehend reality in its own way, in a way that it's learnt that it's safe to do according to the trauma from the past and the societal level programming. So if you are embodying a fluid structure of identity and you're tapping into a current like Yaldabaoth, you are understanding that this is a very core aspect of you. And when you are actually merging with this being and taking this being as an aspect of you, it's a bit like finding relatability with Hitler or with another kind of tyrannical political leader. Okay, this is an energy that everybody tries to suppress, but why do we have such tyrannical leaders who are in charge and political groups that are becoming more and more popular that are much more tyrannical in nature? Is because this is a direct mirror of the repressed tyrant within. So you're tapping into Yaldabaoth to integrate your inner tyrant, and when you do that, you are not falling a victim to behavioral patterns that are built from power loss, basically. You're not falling into illusionary patterns that are trying to maintain an aspect of separation just so it can try and maintain control over its reality. So what is the impact of actually taking your tyrant or taking a tyrant as a part of you? Okay, Yaldabaoth comes down, maybe he'll come down in the form of Hitler. Okay, and then you're taking this energy as a part of you. You're actually taking this tyrant as an aspect of your consciousness. What does that do? It creates a merging, and it will basically initially create a sensation whereby your controlling energy will start to increase. Okay, you may start to want more control in the reality around you. You may feel deeper anger and frustration with the world around you. Literally, you are basically evoking this very tyrant energy that bleeds into the collective consciousness of humanity in order to really sit with this energy, process it, and understand what's underneath it. So you invoke Yaldabaoth. merge with this energy, the inner tyrant emerges, all of these tyrannical archetypes start to come through and start to possess your body day to day. And instead of pushing them away, oh God, no, I shouldn't feel that. Oh God, no, I'm not a tyrant. Oh God, no, I shouldn't be feeling that. Instead, you're actually letting these archetypes come through and you're actually allowing them to be processed and integrated and understand what their needs actually are. Then this is where you will then gain paradoxical power over these different aspects of you. In other words, you are going to be able to channel that inner tyrant into an energy which is far more constructive. And if this happens on the collective consciousness, if everybody takes the tyrant as an aspect of them, then this is basically what is going to dismantle the collective shadow of the Demiurge. Okay, not trying to destroy the Demiurge, not trying to escape the Demiurge, but actually accepting this primordial being, this primordial serpent-like being with a lion's head, which is Yaldabaoth. We are taking this distorted aspect of divinity as an aspect of us and understanding that this being has been influencing our consciousness and our autonomy without us even realizing it. And now we actually get to work with this part of us instead of against this part of us. Now, many people may be resistant to what I'm saying here, and I encourage you to explore that resistance that may be coming up as a result of it, okay? Where are you resisting your inner tyrant? Because if you're neglecting the Demiurge, you're neglecting your inner tyrant. Okay, so where are you neglecting your controlling energy? Where are you neglecting your narcissistic or maybe even sociopathic traits that you may emanate depending on what triggers may come through? Where are you trying to convince yourself that you do not have controlling tendencies? Where are you trying to convince yourself that you are not the manipulator and you are the one that is manipulated, because everything is a mirror? It doesn't mean that if you attract narcissistic partners, it doesn't mean that that is your fault, for example. But what that does mean is that that person or these relationship dynamics are literally direct manifestations of archetypes within you that are trying to get you to serve yourself. Okay, so if you're pulling in narcissistic dynamics, that's an indication that you need to serve yourself. Yeah, if you're pulling in sociopathic dynamics, you need to take ownership of these aspects within you. Okay, and if people continue to reject these aspects, then they will continue to be in these outer layers of the people pleaser or the victim and the person that everything happens to, instead of actually being the person that serves themselves and knows when to put boundaries in place. So that is just some of the benefits of actually integrating these tyrannical energies within. Other benefits are processing of fear. Okay, when you're integrating the tyrant within and taking the demiurge as an aspect of you, you are interacting with the very archetype that represents fear for the majority of the collective. Okay, Yahweh, or whatever you refer to him as, Yahweh, the Christian God, whatever that may be, okay, there is an element of gaslighting and fear that is associated with that archetype. Okay, and even if you're not a religious person, it's also looking at where you may also be doing that to other types of intelligences. People do it to daemons all the time, projecting their parental dynamics onto these spirits, projecting their own unmet needs onto these spirits. It's exactly the same as projecting it onto the Christian God. You're just basically directing it into a different current of energy. So the processing of fear and actually learning how to use fear as a guidance system is another benefit of really working and integrating that inner tyrannical energy. Not to mention, you are also going to ultimately have more harmonious relationship dynamics around you and be more in touch with your vulnerability, because you are going to understand your power and worth more, to the point where you don't have to fall into behaviors that are trying to separate yourself from the world around you, or you don't have to fall into behaviors that are subtly manipulative so that you can gain control over a situation, because you already understand your own sense of self-worth. Not to mention, when you're integrating this tyrant within, you're no longer trying to separate itself from you. So you're no longer projecting this inner tyrant onto world leaders. You're no longer saying, oh, this world leader is the main problem for everything that's going on in the world, or this world leader is the main problem for this. Okay, so many people do that. This is the whole thing. Okay, it's like if there is an archetype that you are resistant to, no matter what it is, Yaldabaoth is the manifestation of that. Yaldabaoth is the archetype of that. If you are resistant to the archetype of the murderer, okay, you have to understand where the relatability is with the murderer. If you are resistant to the archetype of something even more triggering, such as the archetype of the paedophile, then you have to find relatability with the paedophile, okay? Understand where you are repressing your own innocence, where you are detaching yourself from your own innocence, and where you are trying to basically purge your own innocence and molest your own innocence. If you are resistant to, say, a political leader, then you have to understand why you are resistant to that political leader. Okay, even, doing it for like really deep and repressed stuff such as sexism, racism, all of these different things. Okay, why are these things still a problem within the collective consciousness, particularly within the UK and the US, because the collective consciousness completely represses these feelings, and then it bleeds through to the surface, and then it's manifesting through world leaders. So you have to find that relatability. And this is what ultimately comes with the state of Darth, okay? Learning how to embody a state of Darth that is a fluid state of consciousness instead of being one thing specifically. Because when you are that solidified consciousness and wanting to be one thing specifically, then it's very easy to identify with one thing. At which point your falsehood is going to do everything in its power to try and stop you from seeing that and stop you from integrating that aspect of you, because it's only responding in a way that is trying to keep you safe and maintain its illusion and false order. This is the whole thing, okay? The whole point is that the Demiurge awoke within the lower realms, within the void, within the lower dimensions of reality, and thought that he was God. Much like how you think that you have your sovereignty, how you may think that you have your autonomy. Okay, but as soon as you face a being such as Yaldabaoth, the raw aspect of falsehood that is beyond all of the masks of false light, then you are going to gain direct gnosis into the illusion of these different things. Okay, so what happens when the ego gets backed into a corner is that it's going to try and dish energy outwards and make it the world's problem. Okay, at which point it becomes the problem of that person over there. That's the person that's in the wrong because they triggered me. Oh, they triggered me in that way. They triggered me in that way. Oh, it's this world leader that's the problem. Oh, it's this person who committed this crime. He is the problem. Okay, it all creates greater separation within self because you feel threatened. Okay, and all those programs are doing are basically trying to maintain a false sense of security. So what happens when you invoke the force, that is the literal primordial representation of that aspect of you, the literal primordial representation of the vulnerable gods, the vulnerable divinity that is trying to put up all of these masks and make himself out to be something that he's not. What happens when you invoke that energy directly and don't invoke the mask of it, like Yahweh and the Christian God? You are tapping into a force that is going to dissolve the illusion of these masks. At which point, what's beyond it, what's underneath it, your unhealthy, power-hungry nature, okay, your illusionary desires, your illusions of grandeur are all going to be exposed just because you are tapping into the very current which is underneath all of this. And this goes back to the fact that invoking the Demiurge is really going to, and what aspect comes through, is really going to be driven by your intention. So if you're invoking this energy as Yaldabaoth, you are invoking this energy as the true sort of chaotic, primordial aspect that it's trying to make itself out not to be in that respect, okay? Just the same as what you're doing internally in different ways. Okay, so invoking the Demiurge is a very powerful pursuit of integration. And to do so, and if anything, to actually path work with the Demiurge, where you do a share of invocations over a longer period of time, which I will be releasing on Patreon at some point, by the way, then, this is a path working that is going to expose you to your deepest aspects of illusion of power, illusionary power dynamics, illusions of control, and the need to dominate. This is the thing, okay? And this rules many spiritual circles, okay? Many left-hand path groups. Why do you think a lot of information on real occult initiation is either deliberately not shared or it's deliberately repressed? Because many people are trying to gatekeep this information because they want to perceive themselves as separate. And this is the exact force of Yaldabaoth. Okay, so you're tapping into this energy to take every tyrant, every paedophile, every rapist, every murderer, every aspect of humanity that is operating from an illusionary power dynamic and illusion of grandeur. You're owning it all within yourself and finding the relatability within every aspect of human nature. So this is why you do have to be prepared for this pursuit. Now, if you are afraid and you want to ease yourself in, a good way to do it is to call on Abraxas and evoke Abraxas and then evoke Yaldabaoth. Okay, so basically you're bringing Abraxas into you, which is the illusion, which is the personification of the axes that shatters duality and is the very force of integration of opposites. You're tapping into Abraxas, bringing the energy into you, and then you're evoking the Demiurge in front of you, and then you're not actually interacting with the Demiurge directly. This is a good way to do it, and I will put instructions on Patreon about this, but it's not actually the way that I would recommend, purely because you're still operating from the illusion of separation, okay? If you're invoking Abraxas, Abraxas is kind of like the safety net. This is the thing, okay? And then you're still kind of like perceiving Yaldabaoth as like this caged being that needs to be kind of contained or kept away from you, despite the fact that this being has a lot of control over the reality around you anyway, whether you look at it or not. This is the whole point. And if you look at it, you're actually going to learn these qualities within you and you're not going to fall victim to them. So the way that I recommend to do it is to actually invoke the spirit, to actually bring the energy down into you. And if you are sure of your own sovereignty, then you're going to have no problems doing this. Okay, whereas if you are afraid of losing the illusionary title that you have attained through your spiritual evolution or through your trauma integration work, then what's invoking the Demiurge going to do? Yeah, it's going to actually prey upon that. It's going to prey upon that energy. So what this energy is really going to do is expose the illusions of the trophies that you have already attained based off of your own trauma work or your own initiatory process that you have done previously. The amount of people that come to me, oh, I've been doing trauma integration work for years. Oh, I didn't realize that this was still a problem. I've been doing trauma integration work for decades, but I'm still experiencing these problems. I'm still operating from the illusion of separation, basically trying to hide behind the trauma work that they say that they have already done. But in reality, once again, they're just falling a victim to the same force of separation and neglecting the need for the continuous process. And tapping into this current is going to expose that. It's going to expose the illusions, and your job is to see beyond them. Okay, maybe even the energy will come through as this, angry force. Okay, it's definitely what happens with me. This, if I tap into this type of energy, it comes through angry. Okay, and it wants to take revenge out on the world. Okay, first tapping into this energy, I was like, and I'm not I'm not the type of practitioner that engages in any form of baneful magic or cursing or anything like that. But this energy comes through. I'm like, I want to curse. I want to curse this person. I want to curse that person. I want to curse this person. What is the opportunity there for me? the opportunity there is not to curse them. If I was to curse this person, I'm falling into this inner tyrant, and that's exactly the purpose of this energy, is to help me to see beyond it. This is the whole point. It's exactly the same as a demonic spirit, okay? Asmodeus, for example, if I tap into Asmodeus, the last thing that I want to do is become more like Asmodeus. This is the thing. I love Asmodeus. He's awesome. He's an amazing guide and was amazing in my initiatory process and continues to be. But the goal is not to become like Asmodeus. The goal is to master the qualities that Asmodeus represents. Why is Yaldabaoth any different? Okay, why is Yaldabaoth any different to that? Okay, Yaldabaoth comes through, he's like, yeah, illusionary power dynamics. Oh, look how powerful you are. Look, I'm so powerful. The goal is to see beyond the illusion. The goal is to see through that illusion so that you are not basing your life off of these illusions of grandeur that never actually defined who you were in the first place. Okay, so if you are ready to face the tyrant of humanity, and if you are ready to face the most dense power dynamics within humanity and integrate them and face them, then invoking Yaldabaoth may not be such a bad idea. And if you are afraid of this process, and if you are afraid to invoke this deity, then I would explore why. Okay, are you afraid of being knocked off of your illusionary high horse? Are you afraid of everything that you've done in the past, from trauma work to initiations of, are you afraid of these things becoming nothing? Are you afraid of these things dissolving and ultimately basically moving into a reality where you can't hide behind them anymore? If you are, then tapping into this energy is not such a bad idea. Very powerful topic, but I think that's everything that I needed to cover in today's video. I will be uploading guided invocations onto my Patreon to help with this type of pursuit, and a specific path working to integrate the inner tyrant. But for now, thank you guys. Be sure to check out the membership programs within the first and second links of the description of this video. Definitely hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.